Hello, everyone. Welcome to our episode of It's Me, Not You. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Hello, Jake.
Hello, everyone. It's me, and you're you. Stupid. That one didn't work.
I like Jake's little intros now. He's coming up with his own intros. He forget whatever we say. It's whatever Jake goes by. It's what we're gonna do for the day. So for
We're
today's
workshopping it.
yeah, it's work in progress. So for today's
Yeah.
episode, we wanted to talk about Ascension, what it is, what may be some signs and symptoms that you're going through Ascension, and how to kind of, because there can be some disconcerting feelings when you're going through Ascension and maybe feeling not very well, but yeah, how to handle that, how to manage it. So I'm going to tip this off to Melissa because this is a topic she wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions from people, just kind of reaching out to me like, is that a sign? Why am I seeing so many signs all of the time? Whether it's like a feather on the ground or just something kind of coming across their path, or a lot of you get like an ascension headache, people asking about that, or just kind of overall with how they're feeling. And we are going through a big time of ascension right now.
Mhm.
Ascension happens differently for everybody, but we are kind of between that wheel of the year with the solstice before Lugnasa, in that's like August 1st. So
Mm.
it kind of is like a doorway time period right now.
Mhm.
So, for me, ascension, what it means is that you're rising to a higher vibrational state, but that doesn't mean that it feels good necessarily to get
Mhm.
there. So you might all of a sudden, like your gifts, you're just downloading all the time, and you can feel really afraid. You can feel like, almost like your nervous system is a little shot, because your ability to feel energy, and I mean that in all types of ways, whatever clair you have, whatever energy work you do, it's more sensitive.
Mhm.
So that also means you can be more sensitive to people's reactions to like being in crowds. I know for me, I was in crowds last weekend and I'm just like, I can't do this. I need to go home. And normally I'm a very extroverted person. Like I love doing that stuff. And ascension headaches is a thing. Do you guys get those?
Yes, but it's also likened to an ascension flu and can feel like you have the flu-like symptoms. And
Mm.
usually if you do get the ascension headaches, it means you need to strengthen your root and you need to ground in more.
That's
And that
not
will
fun.
help to manage your ascension headaches.
I like to fly around. That's not fun.
I'm just saying, like, if you are getting an ascension headache, in order to kind of, not have the
Right.
headache, it kind of means, yes, you're going through a vibrational shift, but you need to root in more and it helps you to expand out your vibration.
So when you have a vibrational headache, where do you tend to feel it, Rachel?
In my head.
Like, I mean, for me, it's really my third eye. Do you get it like that specific, or is it all over? You're so smart.
Okay. So it depends on what I'm doing, because if I'm doing like energetic meditations, which I do like 3 times a week, it can feel like it's coming down right over my crown and it's going straight. It feels like I'm in a column of light. And it just depends. It comes in all over the place for whatever is going on. But I'm also super, super energy sensitive. How about for you, Jake? Feel it in your
uh,
head?
it feels
Melissa's gonna
somewhere
like
around
totally break
here.
my face. I'll show you
No,
headache.
Remember when I said I
no,
could smack from a distance?
Yeah, good luck.
For me, I feel it's definitely not like a subtle one or anything like that. It
Yeah.
feels like two um grilling tongues are just like pinching the brain. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. It's sharp and it's really quick. It doesn't last very long, but it
Mhm.
like you'll go like ah, and that weird expression comes with it too. Ah.
And then you're like, I'm
Yeah, see, for me,
ascending.
it feels like my third eye is giving birth. Like it's
Uh,
just this pressure of opening. And I
Yeah.
wanted to ask like how you guys all feel it, so that our listeners know, like, maybe you're just having a regular headache because it's hot out and whatever else is
I
happening.
usually
the
feel
ascension.
some sort of like vibrational energy that comes with it. If I'm getting like a tension headache or like a migraine coming on because of like the weather or my allergies or something like that, like I'll feel it in the back of my eye or I'll feel it in the back of my head. If it's like for me, if it I do kind of equate like ascension or higher vibrate, it feels like a column of energy just plopping in. Melissa,
Maybe
how
that's
about
where
Yeah,
those
for
you?
me,
pharaoh hats came from.
Maybe, never know.
what hats?
The pharaohs, you know, the like Egyptian, the really tall cone.
Ooh, ooh,
Because
ascension
I know
hats,
even Maggie's
ascension
been
cones.
feeling it.
Ascension codes.
She's up at like 1 o'clock in the morning and she just will not sleep. There's just too much energy around for her.
Hmm.
That's because Maggie's a mystical queen. She's got big fish to fry right now.
Oh, she
We're in a
is. And
transitionary period.
she has to take care of me, which is not easy right now either.
Sweet girl. But I
No.
feel like even like during like times of like, shifting or
Yeah.
ascension, things like that, I feel like it's always like I'm always the last person to know that that's the space that I'm in, because I think that there is that sense of kind of just like whirling around and just kind of floating around ungrounded. And
Hmm.
that for me kind of can last like a week or two before I'm really catching on and like becoming cognizant of it. I feel like there's that floating feeling that you're just kind of like flying
Yeah.
by the edge of your seat and you're like, why does everything feel like so like disjointed, or like why am I feeling irritated?
Hmm.
But for me, in those times I feel like it goes so full tilt, like so ungrounded, that you're almost like leaning forward in the day and you're not like stepping back just to observe. So like for me, it'll go on for like a week or so and I'll be like, oh my god, why do I feel this way? What is everything being so funky for? Like, what is everybody's effing deal? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like
Right.
one of those like what the hell moments.
Hmm.
And then it all kind of just like starts plugging in, or eventually it's just like things just like start to crumble. You know what I mean? Like situations come to a boil and they start kind of coming to the top of things, like a conflict at work or
Hmm.
a social situation that you're kind of observing. And it's in those moments that I realize, oh, I see what's happening here. But not really, but usually for me, I don't necessarily notice that that's the space that I'm in until that kind of tower card moment is happening, where I'm finding that like structures are breaking down, or
Hmm.
routines are becoming dissolved. And that's hard to kind of explain, but it feels like things that like long-standing routines or agreements or kind of relationships dynamics around us, you'll find that they kind of start to dissipate, and
Hmm.
that we kind of almost, for me, I almost feel like I inadvertently welcome it. Like it's this organic kind of chaos, but at the same time, when it settles down, you're like, all right, well, that went left for whatever reason. I'm good with that though. In a way, there's always that sense of relief, I will say though.
And don't you also kind of liken it to things? I also feel like we're shifting, out of our ego self into our more divine self.
Yeah,
Like we're
absolutely.
getting out of like self-centeredness and things about ourselves, and we're becoming more compassionate towards others. And I also feel like we're not triggered by certain situations that we may have been so in the past. For me, I liken ascension to kind of learning, you know, lessons and dissolving limiting beliefs and things of that nature. But let me ask you this question: do you think that ascension and awakening, are they interchangeable words for both of you?
I feel
No.
like awakening is like, I would equate better with like the first leg of your journey,
Hmm.
like maybe the moment that you have that aha step back moment,
Right.
um clouds part, the ocean separates, all that. Or what, metaphorically or physically, I don't know.
Hmm.
But I feel like awakening is a little bit more of like a beginning leg of the journey, or at least like that first mile marker that kind of sets you on your path.
Hmm.
And then the ascension, I think ascension is an
I think it's
intermittent experience.
ongoing.
Like yeah, it happens every once in a while, every 6 months, every year. Some people maybe only every couple of years.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
honestly, it's all dependent on what stride you're taking. And I think like the willingness to be flexible, or the willingness to be fluid in those times of change and in those times of chaos. We can accept it, roll with it, and just let it kind of go its due course while keeping our center. Or we can actively fight back and try to hold on to a system that is also trying to disassemble itself. it's again, always goes back to ego, and if we're ready to shift, or if we're ready to accept that change, or will we fight it? I think that that's ultimately like the ultimatum that it always kind of boils down to. Will I embrace the change, or will I start seeking out the answers that I need right now, or will I resist it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
What are some, like, maybe some signs for anyone that is through their spiritual awakening and now they're going through an ascension process? What do you think are some signs, or maybe some ahas, like, oh, okay, this may be ascension for you?
Well, I think it really depends on the person. You know, every ascension is a little different. Some
Mhm.
are more subtle than others. And some, it's like you don't recognize until you look for your safety net and it's not there, and then you freak out. So, for example, when I was reopening my gifts, when I wanted to ask if something was right for me, my third eye would burn. That was my yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I couldn't get it to burn. I was hearing things though and seeing things, but where was my where were my training wheels, right? So I think that's one of the things to pay attention to, is that subtle differences in, you know, I even had somebody say, I don't feel things vibrate as much anymore, right? Because you're just knowing. They don't have to be like ring the doorbell. They're just there, and it's happening. But a lot of signs from spirit really depends on your relationship with spirit. So if you're an outside person, plants, animals, feathers, that sort of thing, you know. But if you're internal and city kind of, you might see, I don't know, like a red car all the time, and that means something specific to you, or just things that are in unexplained places. You know, it's going to be something that pops out that's not part of the normal, that's trying to get your attention. Or it's like I said, it's for me, I get the headache. That's usually my sign that something
So
is coming.
then do you have like increased awareness, heightened intuition, greater feeling, more connected, like those kind of
After
signs?
it's done, I do. But during the vortex spinning around, I'm a little more afraid, you know, not afraid, but afraid sensitivity. Like, ugh, too much, too many people.
Yeah.
I need my plants. And so I start doing more walks and doing more of that stuff to kind of get me until I'm done spinning. You know, it's like riding the roller coaster. That's what Ascension is. You're going through all your twists, your turns, getting everything out of it. And then when you get off, you have this whole new way of being, but you really do have to buckle up, at least in my opinion, for that ride if you want to get the most out of it.
Have you guys read any books or anything about going through an ascension?
No.
So I read this book. It's called The Complete
No, I can't say.
Ascension. I'm cutting you off, Jake. It's the Complete Ascension Manual,
That's
how
fine.
to achieve ascension in this lifetime. This is what the cover looks like.
Mhm.
It's like a pretty fascinating book. And I will say that there's actually like a meditation in it that kind of will walk you. It doesn't, like, you're not going to be fully ascended. I do believe that we're always going to be ascending, just like for me, awakening is also kind of peeling back layers. But I will say that I did like this book. It was quite fascinating. And I'm actually going to bring up I read it a couple years ago, but it's like goes through like all the different keys, initiations, like what are the lessons you're supposed to learn as a soul. Like it's I guess I should say it's actually quite an intense book. And the meditation that's through it, you're just like when you read it, it's actually really long and you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ever going to achieve this. I don't know if I'm ever going to be truly compassionate for every human. Like, I don't know. But anyway, how
Well, you
about
know, it's nice in theory, but also, I mean,
we're
I'm
all
sure it could be used
humans?
kind of ceremoniously, you know,
Yeah.
like in those different periods that you're having, you know. Um, I always like to my kind of advice for people that are in that space. I mean, always come back to my roots of, you know, working with the cards and working with tarot. Um, and one of the favorite practices that I have is called path working, where, so, you know, if you're in this space where you're just feeling disaster for certain corners of life right now, or if you're feeling like you need to step into a new space, mindset wise or psychologically, all of that stuff, I always love to go into the deck and I always find, you know, what do I want to be right now?
Mhm.
Where do I want to be in this life? Am I trying to embrace, you know, the emperor, or am I trying to lean a little bit more into the sun right now?
Yeah.
Am I looking for connection? Maybe I'll reach into the star and I'll have that kind of moment where I meditate with that card and I imagine myself stepping into it, integrating that change or that kind of seed to churn the wheel, you
Yeah.
know. And I might spend a couple days with that because you're kind of trying to actively visualize, okay, where does this bring me? What's the other side of this tunnel look like? And you know, what are the first kind of couple steps that I can do to start kind of bringing that in, to usher myself into that. Um, for me
So
personally, I always feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like there's this weird sense of deja vu where it's like I should know something right now, but
mhm.
I don't know what I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
in those kinds of periods of
But you
ascension, like
know
there's
that
this,
you don't know it, so you're aware.
yes, yes, and it's just that odd feeling, and I think a lot of people, a lot of clients that I have worked with have always mentioned or alluded to having that kind of situation, but it's always like this, I feel like I'm missing something, I feel like I'm missing something. And
Mhm.
I feel like there's something to be said for like the sign in that, where it's like, okay, maybe it's time to step back and stop trying to overanalyze and
Mhm.
just kind of be a little bit more present, see what's presenting itself organically to you, or get your shit together.
I
So
think it's
have
both.
you guys also, like, as you've been ascending and going through ascension, like maybe tapping into, like, I always hear about like disconnecting from the matrix, disconnecting from, artificial programs. Have you guys done any of that type of work or been in your realm at all? Like I like to disconnect from the aging matrix. But you know what I mean? Like I do. I'm
I
like
like
I
to
just
disconnect from the working
I'm like
matrix.
I'm
I quit.
disconnecting from that matrix. Like you know what I mean? Like have you guys ever like disconnected or kind of like I've like seen things fall apart or maybe belief systems or anything like that?
um
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that there's a specific name to it, but
Mhm.
yeah, every time I ascend, I take what I need from what I've learned, and the values that I have are at my core, but I
Mhm.
do evolve and grow with them, and I
Yeah.
try to stay open to, change. It's not easy to let things go. It's not
Like
easy.
time is just an illusion.
Yeah, but I've always thought that.
Well, then,
Physics
I
is
mean,
not
that's
my
part of the
friend.
ascension is realizing that.
No, that was
Um,
just not like in physics.
all right. So let's just spin this for our listeners. Um, what kind of advice or anything you would give for someone that maybe is going through an ascension? Like just ride the wave, you're going to be okay. You may feel ungrounded. What are maybe some pieces of advice, Melissa, that you could
Well, if you just
give
heard
them?
that thump, Maggie just brought me the Four Agreements book, the
That is a
box
good
of
book.
them that you just heard fall over.
Mhm.
So Maggie says to read the Four Agreements is a good place to start. She's now trying to pick it up and hand me all four books.
Sage
But do
Maggie
you
has
think that the
I
spoken.
know.
four agreements go with ascension? That's more of like just, not taking things personally.
But I
Like,
think that's part of it, because it is hard when you're
be a person of your word, not, be impeccable with your word, not taking things
right.
personally.
And if you are those things, ascension's easier. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think that it's just because, oh, it's Halloween, like we're going to ascend. It has to be that you're in a place of preparation of that you've done some, work
Mhm.
to get to that point to be ready to ascend.
I think part of it is it's taking it from all the focus on you and making the focus more on others and how
Mhm.
can you be more
Of service.
compassionate and be of service and really being part of that unity consciousness to kind of raise up the consciousness of the entire planet. How about for you, Jake? Any before we wrap this up, any piece of advice you may give to somebody that is going through an ascension and maybe is having a hard time with it?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, there isn't exactly a formula to like how to like overcome those times
Hmm.
of that uncertainty or that transition period. So for me, I often feel like I'm going backwards and forwards. You know, some
Yeah.
days it feels like I'm really kind of ahead of the game, really making progress in this period. But then sometimes I feel like I'm not learning anything, or I'm not seeing the bigger picture, and I can get frustrated with that. And I could get into my head about that and find reasons, be like, oh, that's because you're doing this wrong, or that's because you reacted this way, blah, blah, blah. So for me, I really just say that a lot of it really is you kind of have to just take this like active viewing seat during it all, and in a way kind of let it ebb and flow as it naturally should. Find your systems that make you feel grounded, find your systems that make you feel connected to your path, your passion, things that make you just comforted, your comfort movies, the books that you love to rely on in these periods. I think an incredible amount of self-care is always important during these times as well. Because again, we can't necessarily do things physically to usher that momentum forward, so there is that delicate handle we have to take to it, where we actively observe it, embrace it, but at the same time I can't physically manipulate it to rush ahead or skip over the next couple of tribulations that are supposed to happen first. So it can be difficult, but I would say find your systems, think of a couple handful of things that are in your reach that you can pull on when you are just feeling depleted or feeling like you need to get some clarity. Find a space that you can dedicate to that. Have a little cubby, create a little safe space in your home too, a fort of some sorts if you need to. And really just be easy, but also maybe try to journal, keep notes, keep track of like what your experience is, so you can reflect on this at a later date. Or you can read it back and at least see where your mind was at and where were your first go-tos. Did you go to the ego first, trying to problem solve? Did you go to a certain childhood event? Did it remind you of a certain version of yourself in life? There's a lot of opportunity to really be observant and learn a lot from yourself and how you react in these periods too.
Yeah. How about for you, Melissa?
That's what I got.
That's what he got.
Nothing really. No, I'm just kidding. I do a lot of the journaling and writing, like, because my headache really is my way of knowing, okay, this is happening, so I need to pay attention. And when you're ascending up for something, so say like, I'm ready to hold boundaries on people, on my time, especially, you're going to find a lot of challenges to those boundaries. Like, are you sure? Are you sure you're ready? Are you sure you're good with this? And the universe kind of keeps giving you tests until you really can be, kind of in that balanced place with anything. But I do like to go back and read my journal, just like Jake said, and see, how did I change? How have I grown? How have I gotten better at handling ascension? And yeah, it really is about finding your space, your place to just take that breath, that place to be, whatever it is that makes you feel connected.
Yeah. And I think one of the things also is that safety comes in, and when you feel safe within yourself, you will be able to kind of manage a big shift, a big change, and you can also recover from a big change when you're definitely going through any type of this. If you have a safe space, so when you feel safe within yourself, you'll definitely be able to kind of navigate that energy. So that.
This is the book that Maggie pulled out from the
The Mastery of Love.
Actually, the Mastery of Love one.
Okay.
She managed to get it out of the little book binding.
We'll make sure to link the Mastery of Love in the show
Maggie's
notes.
recommendation.
All right, perfect. All right.
Oh, I love this.
Everyone, I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much, and bye.
Bye.
Good luck ascending.
Good luck ascending.